What's up, Bitcoin Radio? It's your man, Joe Blackburn. You're listening to WBTC in the Bitcoin Hour. Today, we have a guest joining us, Mr. Alan Goodman, and he's going to go over a little bit of the things that he's been up to and a little bit of his past. You know, we've heard from him before if you've ever listened to the interview I had with him on CCT, Crypto Coin Trader Facebook group. But today, we're going to try to maybe get a little bit more into the meat and potatoes of everything. And he's got so much to say. He's got so much experience. Alan is the co-founder and co-creator of both MTV and Nickelodeon. I know Nickelodeon had already been created at the time, and I guess I'll let Alan explain that. But, you know, they picked Nickelodeon back up off the ground. It shaped a lot of our childhoods. Like, I think about how much MTV influenced, not just me personally. Like, yeah, I watched MTV, but it wasn't a part of my everyday life. But I can promise you this: it shaped all my friends at school's days. It shaped everything that I know that about our culture growing up in the 80s. And that was pre-internet, right? Before everything was about what was on social media. We got it from MTV. We got it from Nickelodeon. We got it from these channels and these insights into where we were exposed to. And for the most part, that was the cool channels like MTV, like Nickelodeon. Anyways, we'll let Alan kind of get into that. I'll just go ahead and introduce him. What's going on, Alan? How's it going?
Joe, so much fun to talk to you again. I always enjoy our conversations. One thing you probably don't know about me is that I'm a great fan of jazz and a student of jazz, and I write about jazz. I've been writing about jazz for a long, long time. And I always feel as though our conversations are like jazz. I know I have a couple of riffs I can fall back on if I need to, but I never know quite where we're going. There is always a bit of improvisation. We can stumble at any time, and that's the excitement of it, knowing that we're going to stumble and recover, and it's all going to sound great. So, always a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm looking forward to the next hour.
Well, Alan, it goes both ways. You know how much respect I have for you, and right now you're currently serving as the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer for Aeryus project, and my good friend and obviously someone that's close with you, Nicholas Andrews. Hopefully he'll listen. What's up, Nick? Both of you guys have played instrumental, I guess parts and just over my last year, just getting to know other people in the blockchain. You guys have been super. I see y'all more than I see probably anybody else in the space. That it's not directly my best friend.
Yeah. Well, and we were all together actually last night. The whole core founder team of Aeryus were together. My girlfriend's in town and they'd never met her. So we all got together for some cocktails and a little fellowship. We had a good time. And it's just such a great opportunity for me to be a part of this little group of people who are starting to do something that I think is going to be very important and very fresh and unique in this space. And for me, it's really a continuation of my career that started in television with MTV and Nickelodeon. We really looked at those projects as bringing power to people who didn't have power, bringing a voice to
Well said.
people who never had a voice in the world, and defying the authorities and the establishment that said you can't do it, it's not going to work, it doesn't make sense, nobody needs it. And we went on to be extremely successful with those projects. And I look at the crypto digital currency space, the blockchain space, Bitcoin, that's the next step in that process for me of being involved in something that really legitimately has an opportunity to change people's lives for the better. And that's the part of it that really excites me.
Well, and not without any controversy either. And I would say similar to like your startup with MTV. MTV got a lot of slack. I mean, like they flack, should I say, from just the overall public. You were part of something early on in the '80s. That really put people a little uneasy. They made them uneasy because plain and simple, they hadn't seen anything like that before, and it did give power to somebody. It did give a voice to somebody who did not have one before.
It made a lot of people uneasy. It made parents uneasy. In fact, to me, that was the major selling point. I felt if we were making parents uneasy, we were doing the right thing. But it made parents uneasy. It made advertisers uneasy. It made investors uneasy, which is one of the reasons we were all in suits and ties every single day. We needed to make sure that Wall Street
Sure.
could look at us and believe in us. That Madison Avenue, we had to go out and get advertisers. We had to make sure that Madison Avenue could look at us and believe in us. Cable operators really disliked us, especially our initial advertising campaign, I Want My MTV, which was literally kids. I mean, we had kids
Wow.
calling up cable operators saying, put MTV on. And they don't like that. You know, people in power don't like it when other
Of
people
course.
come along and say, give us some.
And that age in that time period, from the late '80s probably to the mid '90s, when my generation, because what you did directly affected me. Of course, there was people that are a little bit older than me, but I grew up and I didn't know really a day without MTV. So I was kind of the first generation of MTV's there, right? And when I was old enough to at least understand, and even my parents, and they'll listen to this, and whether it be Beavis and Butthead or whether it was Ren and Stimpy or Rocco's Modern Life, even like on Nickelodeon, those were shows that were a little bit, not what I was supposed to listen to. And of course, I would want to sneak out. I would want to watch them. I'd be at my friend's house staying the night, and because of the taboo nature, I guess you could say. It made it more attractive in that sense. But nevertheless, you've had this history, this extensive history of knowing what was next and predicting and what the markets were moving to, and whether that be in television or here and potentially the financial sector, in whatever way you want to call the blockchain space. The technology is also kind of fits into that void that you see exists. How would you say your personality allows you to see this stuff?
I have this attitude that everybody on some level is a consumer. So I've after MTV, I had well, it was during the same span. My partner at the time and I left about a year and a half into the company's existence, or at least my association with the company. After we launched MTV, we started our own company, kept them as a client, and I did a lot of business to business advertising, a lot of in the margins of things. But I always had this feeling that everybody is a consumer. And if you look at the world that way and understand that we all kind of respond to the same things, we all want shelter, we all want a loving family, all want a job that provides us with the things we want and some measure of satisfaction. We all want sex, we all need food, we all have the same basic needs.
Sure.
And so when you think about things as a consumer and try to put your mind in the mindset of a consumer, you can just look at things and say, is this better or is it not better? And if it's better, and if it appeals to me on that level, then I want it. So I always try to put aside what is the business opportunity and look at what is the consumer benefit. And when you look at things that way, you'll find yourself in businesses that can be successful. So, to me, the thing about MTV that was appealing to me when I was first approached to join that team, and it was first explained to me, it wasn't explained to me that this is going to be a network for of rock and roll music. It was explained this is going to be a network aimed at a generation for whom there is no TV. And it's hard for us
Sure.
at this juncture to look back at I got involved in 1980, we launched in 81. It's hard to look back and realize that the average cable television system was 10 channels in 1981, 10
Wow.
channels. You got cable to get 10 channels. So there was not a wide, I mean, nothing like what we have now with the massive number of channels, not to mention all that's available on the internet and on mobile. I mean,
Absolutely.
everybody can find a way to have a voice now. But back then, this was a network for people who had no place to turn for entertainment. And by the way, for advertisers who had no way to reach that audience. And I thought about that and I thought about, a network for older teens and young adults. Yeah, that makes sense to me because I was one of those people and I didn't own a television because I knew there was nothing on
Sure.
television that was for me. So when you look at it that way, through that lens, you see the opportunity. Yeah, I get this. This is for me. This is something that I would want. If you can put yourself in that mindset, you can see the advantage. So I look at Bitcoin and crypto the same way now. you're looking at, you know a bit about what we're doing with Aeryus. I guess we'll talk about that in a little bit. But we're looking at Ghana, the nation of Ghana in Africa, as being a major place where we can have an effect. In Ghana last year, 23 banks failed or were forced to merge. They have a real serious problem with their banking system. And not only do they have a problem with their banking system, but your average everyday citizen uh, has a very, very difficult time interacting with a banking system. It's a largely
Absolutely.
rural
Absolutely.
population. They don't live near big cities. It takes time out of their lives to even go to a bank and to involve themselves with a bank. There are issues with identity. How do you prove your identity in a nation where record keeping has not been perfect? There are all these issues. And you look at the opportunity for individuals to transact with each other, mobile phone to mobile phone. They don't have
Yep.
banks near them, but everybody's got a mobile phone in their pocket, right? So they can transact person to person so much more easily than they could if they have to involve themselves in an outmoded, outdated, inappropriate system for their society.
I would even go. I mean, it's not like this is a reach or anything, but although Ghana is the example here because this is who you're working with. This isn't uncommon throughout the world. It's not like other countries in Africa or in South America or even in Asia don't have these similar issues. And as Americans, I know both me and you are both American, but not all our listeners are. But most of us are what we consider Westernized or in Western countries. And to include Australia in that. But because we kind of have these blinders on because life's so relatively easy in a lot of ways. I'm not saying your life is easy all the time. I'm saying life compared to Ghana is relatively nice and luxurious. I wouldn't even say that on a small level, on a very large level. But we don't understand this. We can't understand this. We can't conceptualize it. Even if we have empathy for them, we can't really understand all the problems that they face because we just don't live that.
Hey,
We
hey,
don't
hey,
even understand how to
hey,
live that way.
hey, Joe. There are tens of millions of people in the United States who don't have bank accounts. And I wrote about this
Absolutely.
in one of my Medium Monday articles. I do a weekly article on Medium now, and I wrote about this in one of my articles in that column. There are tens of millions of people in the United States who don't have bank accounts because they can't afford the fees, and they just don't have that opportunity. So they're the ones who are lined up at the check cashing places every week, paying enormous fees to those kinds of places, and are faced with they just don't have any other option.
Alan, like you just nailed it to me. Just the fact that how many Hispanics, people from Central and South America, go and cash their check, right, and then they may be working on a green card, or maybe they're here as undocumented citizens, illegal immigrants. Not trying to get political on that. Whatever way you want to call that, they're still sending money home, and it's still costing them a lot of money. And in that situation, like what better use case is Bitcoin or some cryptocurrency in that realm rather than go to Western Union, spend $30, send it over, and then they got to go. Their family's got to go wait in line in Colombia or in Guatemala and to pick up that money. Now, Bitcoin, you just send it over. They have it in their wallet. They can oftentimes transact with it right there from their wallet. But a lot of people, go to Bitcoin ATM. They're all over Mexico City. I think I heard last time I talked to somebody, one of my friends from Mexico, they said there's 12 or 13 really good, ATMs in Mexico City. And that's just Mexico City. I mean, I'm almost surprised there's not more, but I think as Bitcoin's population, increases as far as users, the use case will catch on. Now, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Alan. I apologize. Keep going.
No, and you make a very, very good point. And that's that some of it is about just cashing my weekly paycheck. Some of it is about, there are a lot of people working here from other nations who are sending money home, who are the sole providers to an extended family of people who don't have any other options. And they're paying enormous fees to take advantage of that opportunity. Wouldn't it be much better for them if they have a way of transmitting money without borders, without restrictions, peer to peer, and then those people get that money instantaneously? We also see, and that Aeryus, what the project that we're working on, is a payment system there are so many other advantages to a digital payment system. Even if you have credit, even if you have bank accounts, even if you have the ability to transact at stores, there are so
Absolutely.
many benefits. You look at all of the ways that the current system dings you. Even when you're sending money peer to peer, it's not really peer to peer. There are 7 places your money stops along the way, all of which can be a place where your identity can be compromised, your funds can be compromised. There are delays. Some of those delays are intentional, so that people make a couple of pennies on your money as it waits to go to the next step along its journey. And none of that is necessary. The fact that there are still bank holds, you deposit money and that money is not available immediately in today's day and age, that they
Immediately.
still get away with that is insane. How do we put up
Yep.
with that? That's crazy.
Absolutely. It is. That's a good point. Like I've got, money if I want to deposit in my account and it's a Friday afternoon, I won't see it till at best Monday, Tuesday, and maybe even Wednesday. What the heck, man?
Exactly.
Come on. This is crazy.
Exactly. It makes no sense.
It makes no sense. Well, this actually brings up a really good kind of a slide into one of your articles that I found was very really really interesting. And for those, I'll let Alan kind of plug his where you can contact him or where you can find out more about him at the end. But he's been writing Medium articles, and I guess you're at what's your Medium?
We call it Medium Mondays, and you can find it under my name, Alan Goodman, Alan Goodman. And I've been doing it for a couple of months now. I do them
Absolutely.
once a week. I keep them brief. They're like 3 to 5 minutes to read them.
I love that about your
Yeah,
articles.
I get in, I make a point. That's about it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Alan, absolutely. And I've really found a lot of interest when you told me that you were writing Medium. I started reading through them, and there's two specifically that spoke to me like on an individual basis that I just really appreciated. And we'll start with just because we were just talking about this and with what Aeryus is doing, what you're involved in, where you see the holes at. I mean, you're spot on, right? The biggest use case for cryptocurrency and Bitcoin specifically is just as a currency. I say this all the time. I see four major use cases, and that is supply chain, and that includes the medical field, gaming, a politically based voting style of blockchain, and then obviously currency. Those are my four big holes that I see can immediately be filled. And I don't even really want to include banking on that because banking for some people is very different than the average, user of a bank, which just needs to transact and have their money put somewhere where they consider safe. So in this case, I would say not necessarily banking, but currency and just in general and spending that currency. But on that note, you wrote an article about Libra and how David Marcus in his when he testified, there was so much, just for lack of a better word, just crap. In between when him actually answering the questions, and used a really great analogy. And folks, if you haven't read this article, I really encourage you to. It's something that Alan wrote, I guess at the end of July, about Libra and David Marcus's when he testified. But you wrote in your specific, I'm gonna quote you here because I have it written down. But we, in quotes, we were all a little shocked when information was revealed that you could watch an entire football game in about 11 minutes, cutting out everything but the plays. In quotes. I mean, that right there sets the tone for everything you were right about. That's the first sentence, right? And I'm telling you, Alan, you're so talented when it comes to this. You know how to captivate and capture people, and this is no different. It speaks directly to what I know about you. You just made a point that there's so much bullshit in between everything else. It's hard to kind of just get answers. And I'll kind of let you take it from here. But tell me what your thoughts were when you were writing this.
Sure. Well, I try to make the articles light and fun to read. And so I don't know how many of your listeners actually slogged through that whole presentation that David Marcus made. And But I did. I actually watched it twice. And what was it, like an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that? And it was shocking to me. The second time I watched it with a stopwatch, and I kept track of how long he was actually speaking. And I don't. You have the article in front of you. I don't, and the detail has escaped me. But it out of the
39 minutes and 48 seconds.
so you take the trouble. You
I got
take the trouble of calling this guy down to Washington to testify. And he says yes. It's a request. He wasn't subpoenaed, I don't believe. So he shows up, and outside of his opening statement, which they get in advance, by the way, so they could have read that on their own time.
Sure.
Outside of that, his actual responses are something north of 39 minutes. And you'd think if you're going to take the trouble of calling the guy to Washington and ask him questions, that you might want to actually listen to what he has to say. So I was just shocked. I haven't really watched, outside of things like Watergate or something like that, I haven't really watched a lot of those presentations. And it's a little bit shocking to see what our elected leaders, who we pay, actually do for a living. And what they do is pontificate and speechify and try to zing and jab one in and score points and all. But what they don't really do a lot is listen. And look, this is a fascinating new area, right? There are brilliant, brilliant people in technology and finance who are leading the charge in a new arena that could be extraordinarily beneficial to people. And again, I look at this as the same way I look at MTV. MTV to me was inevitable. There was no way it wasn't going to happen. When we launched it, we knew this is going to work because we knew people needed it and wanted it. So when we look at blockchain and cryptocurrency, people want it. It's inevitable. It's gonna happen. By the way, I think that the fiat system we're on now is gonna have to go digital. It has to, because our monetary system is not safe. We just take for granted the fact that these hacks and identity theft and all these emails we get from every service provider we give our precious details to, telling us that there's been a compromise and nothing's safe. We just assume that that's the natural byproduct of living in a digital society. It's not. It's the byproduct of living in a digital society that has tried to squeeze another system into a digital society. It's got to be rebuilt from the ground up. And that's what blockchain and cryptocurrency allow. It's inevitable that it's going to happen. So if you have a guy in there who is with the biggest technology company we know of, one of the two or three biggest technology companies we know of, with more engineers than we could ever find anywhere in the world, leading the charge in this direction, doesn't it make sense to ask him questions and learn from him? Doesn't it make sense to, even if you're just going to lead him down the garden path for a year or two and then say, no, we're not going to let you do it? Doesn't it make sense to let Facebook help you figure this stuff out? But no, they don't do that. They ask singers. They tell them how much they hate Facebook. I mean, we learned more about senators in that
Yes.
hearing than we learned about Libra. And that I found fascinating.
On that point, Alan, let me ask you, and of course you can be as vague or not even, you don't even have to answer this if you don't want to, but like you just made a great point about how it was inevitable with MTV, and the same thing with the digital world that we live in. And, I mean, China's already done it with their most recent announcement of in fact, I'll put it to you this way. I think has been trying to be cashless for some time, but they're going for complete and a huge overhaul of their entire digital currency system, where eventually I think that they expect everything to be digital. And that doesn't surprise me with China. And there a lot of times, with the amount of control that they have over their population, I expect that to not be let go. In fact, with Hong Kong, and we see how much control they're trying to grab right now. But without getting too much into that topic, with the inevitability, as you mentioned, of what Libra essentially is going to be, this was going to happen one way or the next. What are your personal thoughts on what Libra and Calibra, the wallet, is going to be like?
Well, I mean, I don't know that I think that Libra is inevitable. It may be that that Facebook is looking at the opposition that they've been getting, and think having second thoughts about their opportunity in this area. I mean, I don't think it's any secret that we all look at that company with a bit of, we're a little wary. They haven't been perfect stewards of our information, and the way that they've guarded it or left it unguarded. You just have to. I don't know if anybody's looked at that movie on Netflix right now, The Big Hack, and learned about Cambridge
Yeah.
Analytics and what they did with Facebook's information, and how they were able to use Facebook, and the questions linger over whether Facebook was complicit in any of that. There's all kinds of murky information about all of that. So even though Facebook wouldn't be in charge of Libra or the Calibra wallet, they're just participants in it. They keep talking about this consortium that would rule it and make the rules and make the decisions. Uh, they may not be the best face for this going forward, uh, and they might realize that, and realize it's better to sort of step back and let somebody else lead the charge. But someone will be, and it may be.
Well, there's a lot of money. Don't you think there's a lot of money placed into a Libra from all these other companies? I mean, it would be hard for me to see them not push really hard in this.
Yeah, and I think there are also some questions about whether or not they're all involved with it, because Facebook is the 800-pound gorilla, and if they said no, then maybe a competitor would say yes. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen with all of that. But
Fair,
but
fair.
when you look at what they wanted to
Agreed.
when you look at what they wanted to do with it, it's not dissimilar from a lot of things we talk about at Aeryus, and I think I went into this a bit in my article as well. We were talking a bit about it before. There are 1.7 billion people in the world who don't have access to banks. Uh, we can do tremendously wonderful things for those people to allow them to build businesses, even if they're illiterate. You can, with a mobile phone, run a business with a limited inventory. I click on a picture of the thing I want to buy. It sends me a symbol back of my smiling child that tells me I bought it. We can do a tremendous amount for people who can't even read and write, who are able to operate, as David Marcus said oftentimes in his testimony, a $40 smartphone. You don't need a sophisticated piece of equipment in order to do this. And if I'm just buying rice or grain or sugar or something else from a neighbor, who that's his business, and I'm transacting with him, there are tremendous things we can do for people in this world, having technology like that available. So yeah, it's going to happen. I don't have any doubt that it's going to happen. I don't know that it's going to be Libra, but it's going to happen.
Absolutely. And, I'm not here to
Right.
say one way or the next, I think this is going to happen, but, I look at this like in the next decade, the amount of technology that's going to change and shape our life. And it may be potentially, and we could say this at the beginning of every decade, probably from here on out to the end of humanity, that it's going to be the most impressive technologically advanced decade of our lifetime, And if you go back into the 60s and, watch when we had the moon landing, and, that was a huge step for humans. And then we never went back to the moon. And I just hope that we don't take the same step where we have so much in front of us and there's so much potential to build something, to do something great. And I had a guest on a couple podcasts ago, Samantha Radakia. She made a great point that, when we're talking about, the fact that, can we build this? Absolutely. Is government or is social influences going to allow this to work? Is government or social, expectations going to bring this in? Because what we can create now is unlimited. It's so scalable at this point. There's not much that we can't conceptualize, that we can't actually build, relatively speaking, from what we know. And I look at like with Libra, and whether it's Libra or not, in my opinion, it's going to be something. And to me, we got Bitcoin. I don't see why we need to move too far away from Bitcoin. But Libra is on the good side going to allow that, what you were talking about with what you guys are doing in Ghana, and there's a lot of similarities to this, and we're going to get into what Aeryus is doing next. But Libra kind of fills a void that at least brings some attention to something that can be fixed. And so, with that being said, tell me about, like, with Aeryus, and obviously, we don't want to give the wrong impression. You work for Aeryus, you are the CMO there, so obviously he's very proud of the work, folks. And I'm proud for what you guys are doing and your goals and what you've already accomplished, and the way that Nick and you and the whole company is run has been very, very, I think, at least in from my experiences, has been very open and very real. And so, with that note, tell me, like, where Aeryus fits into all this.
Well, Aeryus, spelled Aeryus, is a transactional system. And we believe we're the first complete transactional system for digital currencies. We'll be able to pay peer to peer, split a check, send money to a friend, whatever, peer to peer. So it'll work kind of like Venmo on your smartphone, or it'll work like Apple Pay at retail. So you'll be able to wave your phone at a terminal, and we can even use existing terminals, the terminals that store owners already have, by downloading our apps. And you'll be able to pay that way. And it'll go directly from your digital currency wallet, any one of your digital currency wallets, whatever currency you have. We're completely currency agnostic.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to pay in any currency you have. The store owner or shop owner can receive in any currency he or she has, because we do the translation for you. It's constantly updated, so the values are always accurate and up to the minute. And there are no restrictions in terms of borders or hours of the day or anything like that. It works wherever you are in the world to anywhere you need to send funds in the world. So it'll even enable governments to buy things from any governments. There's no restriction on amount. It's not limited to dollars. It's whatever you're paying for, whatever you need, you can pay in whatever currency you have. And it's a proven system. We've already, in private alpha, we've already processed over $8 million worth of transactions, so we know it works. Our smartphone app is weeks away. Our web application is weeks away, and
Awesome.
we've just been building it piece by piece. We've watched some other similar types of things try to launch. We've learned from some of those because some of those people are now on our team. So we're taking our time. We're
Nice.
being cautious. We're going to comply with all the know your customer and anti money laundering needs that there are in the world to make sure that everything's on the up and up. We're getting some very, very good advice from attorneys and financial experts on how to build this in a way that we won't run afoul of government regulators. And it's very exciting because it's new, it's needed, and I think I think people are gonna really be surprised by how good it looks and how professional and how useful it's going to be in their lives.
I agree with that, Alan. Obviously, I can't speak for the actual product because I'm not actively using it, but I know the people who are behind it, and that's between you, Cindy, obviously Nick, Hector, among many others that are involved in this. I'm very excited for what you guys have done. I just, where I think it's so relevant is, through this conversation, and I know it's probably, and I appreciate your ability to kind of, put aside your own biases or your own thoughts, because we're sitting here talking about Bitcoin or Libra or whatever it might be, and you have something that in theory is going to be very similar, not necessarily in theory. Obviously there's some working implementations. I don't want to take anything away from you, but here, as outside of trusting and believing in you guys, I got to be very unbiased when it comes to the speculation aspect or what I anticipate you're going to do, just based off of being fair to the audience. And so, but your ability also to kind of think deeper, to look into, what's right, what's happening, what's good. And there's other good projects out there, and we want those. This space is going to succeed because good projects are successful, and the bad projects that have tainted or tarnished the name of the cryptocurrency or blockchain brand, to the public that's not necessarily paying attention yet, we have to push up and hold up these good projects that have brought a lot of success and a lot of transparency to the space. Now, moving forward and looking at what you anticipate this space is going to look like in a decade or maybe even 2 decades, Alan, what do you think the time frame is? I mean, you're probably one of the most qualified people to at least, I don't want to say predict, but to at least kind of envision how long it takes this stuff to latch on, just because you've been predicting how people are going to receive things and timeframes for some time. So what would you say is like in, whether it be Aeryus, whether it be Bitcoin, whether it be, Libra, regardless of the project, what is the time frame in which you expect the actual world to start really taking notice on this, like a daily use case level?
That's a very good question. I am shocked. I've been only involved in this space. I came from the entertainment world. I was a writer, producer, and a network creator in television. I owned an advertising agency. I worked in the music business. My whole life has been entertainment until less than 15 months ago when I got involved with Aeryus. In fact, it's funny. We realized it at the time, and then we realized it again a couple of weeks later. I had my first meeting with the folks at Aeryus on August 1st, a little over a year ago. It's just, we're just past that again. And August 1st was the day that MTV launched in 1981. I thought that was really an amazing coincidence
Wow, that's
that my
cool.
first meeting with Aeryus was on August 1st. So that's how long I've been involved in this space. We're just over a year past that first meeting. And I can't even catalog how much change there has been over that span. And when I look ahead, it's hard for me to predict how long it's going to take for us to become an important player, or anyone in this space to become an important player, because money has a big jump on us. Money's been out there a long time. So
Absolutely.
that's going to be, and again, I don't know that we'll ever supplant it. I think it's going to be some sort of more of a merging. But what I think is becoming really, really important to people now as they look at this space, it's not enough anymore to launch a new coin and say, invest in my coin, because it's going to be big and it's going to be great. And then people watch the value go up and down, and they try to chart how it's going to move. And maybe I should trade this one for that one. Oh, this sounds like a good, let me jump on that. I think those days are over. And and by the way, the IRS is telling us that those days are over. You're
Absolutely.
not going to be able to do this any longer in opposition to, especially in the United States. You're not going to be able to do this anymore in opposition to a nation of laws and regulations and regulators who want their pound of flesh, regardless of whether or not you think it's fair. We live in a society, we make concessions to living in that society. And one of those concessions is there are governing bodies who, like it or not, are going to tell us what we can and cannot do. So the kind of Wild West days of this industry are fast coming to an end. And so what I look at now is, what are you actually doing? What are you using these currencies and these blockchains to do? And I'm very excited by some of the projects that we're getting involved in through our association with the United. In addition to our representatives of Ghana, we also have an association with the United African Blockchain Association, based in South Africa. And we're getting exposed through them to all kinds of projects that are launching in that continent. and ways that blockchain and crypto can be useful. There are places in the world where there are instantaneous and immediate need for aid. And I'm sure you read the same article as I read. Getting aid to anyone in that part of the world is an exercise fraught with frustration and disaster. There is so much corruption, there is so much waste, there is so much inexperience. You're dealing with remote areas. How do you get the money there? How do you make sure it goes to the people who need to get it? How do you know it's being used the way you intended it to be used? We just it's a mess the way it is now.
Sure.
But if I can snap a picture of an oil spill
Yep.
or some other kind of disaster and send that picture to the aid organization, and that aid organization can send funds directly to me so that I and my local organization that's aimed at stamping out these problems, that we can put that money to instant use. Isn't that better? Doesn't that make more sense? If I can build a system, if I can build a system
Absolutely.
that allows somebody in Ethiopia to board a bus, and they don't even have to pull out their phone, just the fact that they have an app on their phone that has recorded what the value is in their account. I get on the bus, the system can charge me my fee for riding that bus. The bus driver doesn't have to stop and deal with a payment. We don't have any of those delays. The bus can move faster. The bus company gets instant information on how many people are on the bus, on whether there need to be more buses. It all starts to work as one system. The currency, the system for transmitting the currency, the companies that are using that currency to provide services to people, all of that starts to work in a more efficient way for the betterment of living human beings. Those are the things we need to focus on. And Bitcoin can ride up and down and up and down, and we can watch it go up and we can watch it crash down. We can watch it go up again. Until people are using it to do real things, we're not going to know what the value of it is. It's all just on our computer screens right now. We watch the value go up and down on our computer screens. But what is the real value of that currency until people can use it? When I can go across the street and buy a hammer with my Bitcoin, that's what I'll know what Bitcoin is worth. And I wrote about this in another one of my I wrote an article about the currency, the trade war that we're in with China, and well,
It's one of my
the main
favorites.
point I was making there is, we look at
Yep.
Bitcoin and the value of Bitcoin, and there are people who poo-poo it and are saying, look how volatile it is. How can you possibly deal in something that's so volatile? Look at how volatile our current system is when you've got a leader of a
100%.
country who can say, because he can, I'm going to disrupt the world's economy. Uh, is that better? I'm not sure I see how that's better. I'm not
Yeah,
sure I see
I
how that's
understand.
less
Understand.
volatile.
I agree with you on this principle that right now Bitcoin is not in a position on a stability level to be able to be there. As that. But I will say is that if it's not already created, it might be in the future, right? So I mean, there's so many great projects, whether it be Aeryus, whether it be Libra, whether it be Bitcoin itself, Litecoin, etc. There's so many different opportunities for this space to change the world on that level. And look, we're coming up on some time here. Alan. So I actually want to make sure we get up to our quick fire questions. I didn't tell you I was going to do this beforehand. If you've listened, I don't know if you listened to the other ones, but I'm going to ask you a series of questions. They're fun. This is for fun. You can answer as much as you want to or little, but yes or no questions are always appreciated to start off with. But I was going to go ahead and lead into this with stating that Alan, of all the people I've got a chance to get to know in this space, your perspective and your appreciation for why you're in this space, like it speaks to me on a much bigger level. There's a lot of things you could be doing. And to the audience listening back, I'm sure that you've been very successful on many different facets in your life, Alan, but you're not here by mistake. You see something, you have a perspective that allows some foresight, as alluded to and mentioned earlier. But most importantly, you want to help people. You want to change the world, and you want to be part of that. You want to be in front of that, and that's what you're doing. And so I appreciate you coming onto the show today, Alan. It means a lot to me on a personal level and as a friend, but also because I love that my audience gets to hear your perspective and your thoughts. Because frankly, you're a
Well,
genius.
that's
In my
very
opinion, at
sweet
least.
of you to say. I don't think of myself that way. I think of myself as a guy who likes to work hard and is really curious about things in the world that are new to me. And I think I found a niche for myself in this industry in that I'm not a technology genius. I'm not a financial genius. I'm a regular guy who really wants to understand what this is all about and how it can help. And I think I found a role for myself in helping other people like me in that. I've had people who've been vastly successful in their lives in doing whatever it is that they've been doing, who, when I mention I've moved into this space, say, tell me, explain it to me. I don't get it. I mean, this is people who have run huge companies who say to me, I don't get it. These people who went to business school who say to me, I don't get it. Help me understand. And I can really, in a few
Sure.
minutes, explain to them how this works and why it's beneficial. And then they walk away a little more intelligent about where we're going in this world, and that makes me feel good that I'm able to do that. So I
Love it.
think I think I found my space, and I'm enjoying it.
Well, next time I come down to your neck of the woods down there in Florida, then I'm gonna try to get us where we can actually sit down and do a video in person, because I just enjoy our conversation so much, Alan, and I'm very grateful for your time, like I said. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and we'll roll right into the quick fire questions, and they're just entertainment and personality based. Answer is there's no wrong answers, and if you choose, hey, this isn't necessarily what I want to talk about right now, you can say pass. All right, fair enough.
Yeah, okay, briefs, not boxers. Let's start with that.
All right, there you go. No, although I may add that at the end. You can go ahead and answer that question. Which one is it? Let's hear it.
It's briefs.
All
Briefs.
right. Okay, fair enough. All right. So, thank you for that nice introduction. Let's go into favorite movie of all time.
Ooh, well, I'm an old guy, so it's not going to be one that's going to speak to a lot. But I would have to say The Grand Illusion by Jean Renoir, because that was the movie I was watching when I realized I wanted to go to film school, which I ended up doing at graduate school. But anyway, Grand Illusion by Jean Renoir.
That's a great answer. I think that's the kind of answer that I want to happen. Okay. All right. So the next one's a little bit out there. No pun intended. Will humans land on Mars in the next 15 years?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Awesome. I like that answer. Bitcoin as a political party? Yes or no?
No, I don't think so. I
What's the
think
future? Fair enough.
I was just going to say I think
Good.
that it's I think it's something that doesn't have to be a political party. I think it's something that we can all agree on.
Rally behind. I agreed. What's the future of the entertainment industry as Netflix, Amazon, and cable goes?
Wow.
Sorry,
It's
I just dumped that one on you.
it's really crazy out there right now. I think that there will be way more consolidation. I don't think, everybody's looking at subscription video on demand now as a way to lure viewers. There's a question, I think, a very strong question as to how many of these things I'm going to want to pay for on any given month. I think we might become more transactional, signing on to a system or a streaming service because of one particular show that we want to see, and then canceling that when that
Sure.
show is over. It's really in flux right now, and it's hard to say exactly where it's going to go. But I think the days of people paying hundreds of
I agree.
dollars a month for cable, that's gone. I say all the time. I used to say this all the time to my clients in the television business. My son is never going to have the triple play. My son is 24 years old. He's never going to have the triple play
Yep.
where he's getting cable, internet, and
Absolutely.
phone from one company. So forget about that. That's gone.
Yep. In fact, I was with, and this is, of course, no disrespect to DirecTV. I mean, I just recently canceled my DirecTV. I just don't use it anymore, and the amount of opportunities that are out there for me to be able to watch what I want to watch, or, I mean, in fact, I don't even really, if there's a show that I love, I don't even care to watch it like as the weeks go by. I'll just wait till it's literally all over. And then I will watch it all at once on Netflix or whatever streaming service it's on. So, anyways, I know it's a very loaded
My
question.
girlfriend is visiting this weekend here in Florida, and this morning she said to me, "You need a bigger TV." And I said, "I've turned it on 4 times in the 3 months I've been here. It's fine."
Exactly. Exactly right. Yep. All right. So last
Yeah.
question I have for you, Alan. And although, I appreciate that answer, I know that I kind of threw that on you, and it's nice to hear that perspective though. And whether it's, something that we all agree on or something that people are hearing for the first time, that perspective, it's one that comes with a lot of, I guess we'd say grit behind it, earned perspective. So I appreciate you answering that. All right. Last one. And I know you're a jazz fan. So I have this one, penciled in, and it is, what's the best live venue for jazz if someone were to go and watch jazz live?
Ooh, you mean in the world? I got to go with the Village Vanguard. The Village Vanguard is this strange little club on 7th Avenue in New York City. You walk downstairs to this basement room that is odd shaped and small
Lovely.
and and kind of crazy. The bar is all the way in the back on the side. You sit down, you could be the table in front of the musicians, or you could be at a table in the back. It is an amazing sounding room. No one can explain why. Music just sounds fantastic in that room. And more seminal jazz albums have been recorded at the Village live at the Village Vanguard than anywhere else in the world. I've been there. I can't tell you
That's
how
amazing.
many times in my life. Back to my days in high school, I've had the delight of bringing my son there. He's a musician, and being able to pass that love of that venue and that place on to him is a great joy to me. And I can't think of a better place if you're interested in jazz music. I can't think of a better place to go hear music that's going to sound great, and you're just going to have a terrific time.
Absolutely. That's a perfect answer, and I appreciate that. Bitcoin Radio audience, I hope that you found this interview as enjoyable as I have. As I've noted, Alan is a tremendous asset to this space. I think, Alan, you've brought a perspective, as mentioned, that is very unique, but you also bring a personality and a creative mindset that I don't want to say is not rivaled, or because there's a lot of great minds in the space, but it's just very thorough. You have a lot to give this space, and I'm glad that you're in it.
Joe, I'm so proud of what you're doing with this show and with Crypto Coin Trader. Your passion is something that everyone feels who comes in contact with you, and I just always have such a great time when we're
Thank you.
together. I can't wait to see you again.
I agreed, man. I'll be down there at some point soon. One of I think our executive producer, I think he lives about 30 minutes from where your new place is. So next time I go to see him, I promise you I'll come by.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it. I just want to say thanks for this opportunity. I really enjoy. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks for this opportunity. It's a pleasure always.
Plan on doing it again, Alan. I hope that you've had a good enough time where you'll want to have another opportunity here to hang out with me.
Sounds good.
All right, Bitcoin Radio. Until next time, we'll see you soon. Where Bitcoin lives, WBTC Bitcoin Radio. Once again, Alan Goodman, thanks again, man. We'll see you next time.